Good evening and welcome to the Economic Development and Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 6th at 5:30 p.m. First item on our agenda is public participation. Would anyone like to address the committee? If so, you have a couple minutes to talk. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into the approval of the minutes. You guys have had a chance to read the minutes from September 9th, 2024. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to accept the minutes from September 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained.
Okay, next we'll move into economic development updates. Mr. Morris?
Yeah, the annexation update is the Vance property, is something we're going to be talking about in a work session immediately after this. Has not been filed, so there isn't that ticking time bomb yet, but it's, depending on the outcome of this, may be coming. So that would be the annexation update I'll give you today.
Okay, any other general updates?
In the interest of giving us as much time as we can for the budget, no.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into building and planning updates. Mr. Kaiser?
Project updates. Had a lot of planning commission activity in September and August. They've cleared their agenda, everything's moved on, but recently Sheets has obtained all of their permits, went through their preliminary or the pre-con meeting, so they're ready to start. J.C. Whitlam, about the same. 919 West Street, the condo sites, their civil plans were approved. Same with Salvation Army, so we'll start seeing some more activity.
Those other agreements with Sheets taken care of and ready for shovels in the ground, or not yet?
I believe so. That's why we were able to.
Okay, that took care.
The
Okay.
closing occurred on Friday, my understanding, so the properties have transferred. We are past the point of no return.
Okay.
Do
Thank
they
you.
have a timeline on that?
Pardon me?
Do they have a timeline on that?
I'm not aware
The
of.
last timeline I heard was demolition in the next couple of weeks. Is going to take a little bit of time. There's asbestos mediation for some of those hotel rooms, and then the construction will be done before the beginning of summer next year. So the session will be in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I passed out, I was asked by Mr. Williams to kind of give an update of some activity through September of this year. We've issued 20 permits for new single-family dwellings. That's actually the same amount we did through September of last year. Also on the back, commercial activity, it's always low. Between January and September of this year, we only had a few plans go through. For this fourth quarter, when we do the report for the end of the year, I'm sure this is going to go up because we've had a lot of activity since September that will go to construction, or at least get their permits issued before fall.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I kind of have one. So all our new home, everything's going to go through the county now as far as new home construction?
We'll discuss that, I think, number 4.
Number 4, thank you.
Okay. It's you, Mr. Davis.
Okay, we held an open house here a week and a half ago. Pretty decent turnout. We covered 4 topics. We had riparian areas, gave people feedback on that, that new ordinance, our new fee structure, the infrastructure improvements, Chapter 157, and the impact fees, Chapter 158. I got good support, of course, for the riparian, good support for the fee structure. Really no comments at all on the infrastructure improvements. The discussion we had was on impact fees. And long story short, they really did understand I brought up the analogies I've used about the coffee fund, and they can see that there's a need for that kind of funding. So they really did support that in concept. And these were developers and engineers who really would understand the trade-off between infrastructure and cost. So we had proposed an early payment with Platt, which they asked us to delay, so we made that change. They've asked for a phase-in, which we've not given quite as long of a phase-in as they asked for, but we've given them a phase-in. So we've made some adjustments based on that meeting, and we're here with a recommendation to come to forward this now, the version that we have, based on that feedback, to forward it to council for a approval and a public hearing, and then ultimately to go for approval for that. So we're here to recommend that we move forward to the normal adoption process. So,
How many people attended the open house?
10 probably, roughly. They were all people who had current projects going on in the early stages. They were all people who were who had a vested interest in what was to come because of their own projects.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have questions about that?
No.
Okay.
Just want to comment, it was a great job.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
It
you.
made it very easy for us to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would recommend that we move this forward to council. Tom, do you want to?
Yeah.
Does someone want to make a motion?
We'll make a motion to go ahead and do that to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. Looking forward to talking about that.
That's for both proposed sections, 157 and
For both, yeah.
158? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll make it for both of
Second.
both the impact fees and the chapter 157.
Okay, great. Be good to talk about that. Okay, anything on CHIP grant updates?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, I did finally get a chance to speak with Denise Testa up at the county. And in terms of the current CHIP grant we're going on, we're not taking any more applications. To date, we've had 113 applicants. 17 of those, or about 10%, are from City of Wadsworth residents. Of those, we've got 3 that have already been approved, so they're ready to move forward into the next phase, which is to get the bid estimates put together. There's 3 others in the loop that are pending income verification, and then they can move on. So we'll have at least 6 projects in town. The other 11 are applications that are still in the queue, but with a total of 113 and even spread all over the county, that's a fair amount. So we will have at least 6 jobs in Wadsworth, possibly more.
Okay, any questions? Okay, go ahead and move on to number 4.
I can speak to that. So we do have an agreement that's been circulated between the county and the city in terms of the county taking over building department work. That agreement is currently pending within the law department's review at this point in time. We didn't have much in the form of modifications or changes to the agreement, so I wouldn't anticipate that it's going to be stuck in law review for a long time. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to return that to the county. They'll have their review and approval process in place, and that we can get started as soon as the final signature on the document occurs. It'll be a big help to us. It'll change the perspective, make it one-time efficiency shop for those who need those services, and it's really at little to no cost to the city. Quite honestly, there's probably a savings when you factor in some of the personnel-related costs that we incurred. So we're looking forward to making that happen soon.
So you do think it's going to be a cost savings to move that to the county?
Yeah, essentially, you eliminate a position in need, and then there's really limited fees that I would expect we would receive from the county, because the county will just collect those fees themselves at this point. So there'll be a revenue neutral move as a result of none of those revenues, but we won't be taking those in because we're not doing that work anymore.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Can you give us a few examples of the services that we're talking about?
Jeff, would you like to do that?
Yeah, well, basically, we would be moving the whole building department, the residential building department, up to the county. And it's actually reflected in the draft budget for 2025. So all the permit revenues that we receive, they'll go away. But all of the expenses associated with that, whether they're expenses associated with paying an employee, or the expenses that we have to pay the county for doing some of the electric work, which we're not certified to do, those all go away too. So basically, we would have to work out kind of a flow chart for folks, but basically, they would come here they come to the city for any engineering approvals, all zoning approvals. They get those, and then they take them to the county.
Okay.
So that would be, they would be treated pretty much the same way as as commercial projects. They get engineering and zoning here at the city, and then their actual building permits from the county, and they handle all inspections from that point on.
Mr. Tracy, just estimated reaction time, now granted, different times of the year, and if there's 2 weeks of rain, all of a sudden, certain projects get done, but from the time that, I need the post holes inspected on my new addition or whatever, from that phone call to when they come out, what kind of time frame could we be looking at? Because here with the city, I understand the cost difference. Sometimes it was the same day or the next day.
So that was a part of our initial discussions with the county, and they assured us that it would be a 7-day at maximum turnaround.
Okay.
So
That's in terms of the actual permit review and issuance, but in terms of inspections, they treat us the same as we do. So, since Mr. Nussbaum's been gone, we've had to schedule all of our building inspections with the county. We get a call before 2 p.m. on any business day, we put it on, and it can get done the next day.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And the permit review, were we about 7 days, or were we?
That's what I've heard, yes. And that's and actually the state law allows up to 30. And we've been able to do it in about 3 or 4 days. So it's really not a major extension, and it's still within what's allowed.
Thank you.
In this agreement, I want to follow up on the time situation. What kind of time limits, or what do we have control if that goes beyond that 7 days, or goes beyond, certain parts of the county might only get inspected certain days, as I remember in the past. So what kind of control do we have, or have we given up on that? Because we may need to move things ahead, or we want to, and there's obstacles, and the county can't do it. So, what are we losing, and what can we gain, or what kind of control?
we have limited control, so we're giving up a lot of that control.
Okay.
May I say something? It'd be no different than if it was Wadsworth Township.
Right.
It's the same times, basically, so I think it's a win-win for the city of Wadsworth.
So for instance, for many years, they've always done the commercial work for us.
Right.
And that's not an area where we see a request for those inspections to be done or a request for things. The county has handled them pretty expeditiously in those timeframes. They have a more exhaustive number of employees to address residential needs. They've done the workload analysis. They've told us they don't expect to see delays or issues coming from taking on this work. In fact, they're pretty excited to take it on. They've been pushing to take it on a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Who's going to take care of our code enforcement and property maintenance? I mean, our weeds, the complaints that we get, mattresses sitting on porches. I mean, that was part of this job that we're writing off, which is a big concern of mine, because that's probably one of the biggest complaints that I get is the grass and the, housing that's, needs repair and stuff. Who's going to take care of that?
We're going to post a code enforcement position, so we will have that position.
You will have that?
We will.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
To make a point, when we talk about commercial, it's not just commercial building, it's also HVAC, it's electrical, all those inspections and permits, which is a lot more than just a commercial building. So that's all part of the county.
Yeah, the commercial actually does the county does a lot more commercial inspections than we even realize, because we only see things that actually involve new construction or additions to existing buildings. But they do a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't get involved with, for HVAC, electric, and that type of thing.
Okay, so once you guys vet that, there'll be at some point some legislation that will need to be moved forward, or?
That is
or
a
next
question
steps?
that's pending before the law department, so I'm not certain that we'll need authorization, but if we do, I'll reach out to see if we can't put it on for the next council's meeting in November.
Okay, and then real quick, I wanted to back up to the legislation that we're already reading that you spoke about tonight. Does that need to be amended?
Which legislation?
The impact fees and the fees, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been reading that at council. We're
There's
like on-
two different fee proposals. The one's the permit and inspection fees,
Yeah.
no changes.
Okay,
It's, yeah, we've made changes. The ones we're bringing now forward are the impact fees and the infrastructure improvement chapters. Those are new language that we're going to be bringing fresh, first time.
So so in other words, the ordinance language doesn't need change, but the attachments, the actual chapters might be modified?
You'll get, the ordinance is being written right now for first reading at the next council meeting.
But there's pending right now before council on 6th reading at this point.
Oh, I think that is
Two
the
different
fee
fees.
structure.
And those are no change.
so, what's that?
It's different.
The ones we talked about last night, those are different from these two.
Okay.
Yeah, so these
But
will
we
be
don't have
more-
anything that we need to change on the ones that we're
On
currently
the
reading
096
at-
and 097 ordinances, I think we're fine on those,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Morris, the floor is yours.
Let's interact with the economic development tax budget. One of the easier tax budgets you'll see, because there's not a lot of capital improvement on it, but what I wanted to do is not just throw numbers at you or I wanted to kind of address what problems we are addressing with each one of those numbers. If you don't understand the problem, we have limited money, so we should use that sparingly and only address problems that we deem appropriate and fixable. There's three types of development that we're dealing with. Each has their own challenges. We have residential, industrial, and commercial. What are the problems we aim to address with residential development? Right now we have slow growth, and I know we just saw the new numbers as to how many houses we're building. We went from averaging 200 new homes per year in the beginning of 2000 to averaging about 50 per year for the past 5. Our population is growing, but not as fast or as rapid as other cities in Medina County. We have infrastructure challenges. Easy parcels are gone. Now we are dealing with the more difficult parcels, and we need to be able to get water and sewer further and further out. Those are challenges. Just to show, I did this morning, putting together the homes over the periods of time, and you can see the shift going down. It's up and down a little bit, but the trend is towards down. We peaked in 1998 with 255 homes. We cratered in 2022 at 10 homes. So we're finishing out the Mount Eaton Estates right now, so now we need the next wave of homes to be built if we want to get that number up. What are we doing to address these problems, these residential development problems? Well, a lot of the problem was addressing the culture and engineering. We had a reputation for being difficult, fair or unfair. So we're working to change that through having direct communication, having a more open communication, and an open dialogue. We're fixing it by changing the ordinances, some of the ordinances you're talking about, with unworkable regulations. We had fines in all different parts of the code. We had over-regulation, which is things like the riparian right-of-way that was extending beyond to an unworkable situation. We had unpredictable costs. I'm a developer trying to buy something and you say, we'll bill you for it. I can't budget for that. I'm more able to budget if you set a fixed cost. Those are all things that are coming in front of you. None of those involve any budget. We're addressing infrastructure with impact fees. That's another thing we're addressing through changing the code, so we're not asking for budget money for addressing the residential challenges we have. Industrial development is this third or second area we're looking at. What are the problems? Landing these industries are incredibly competitive right now. Lots of these cities have similar type assets that they can offer, programs that they can offer, which leads to great competition. You certainly do not want to be the city that overextends itself to the point of putting yourself in a bad situation. We have limited industrial land remaining in Wadsworth. We're building out the last part some of the industrial land we do have, so we do need fresh industrial property in order to keep industrial going. And that infrastructure is even more expensive than residential, so we need to keep that in mind. What are the solutions? We have to stay competitive, and we are. We utilize the CRA, the job creation grants. If you're going to invest a bunch of capital in our city, then we'll give you a break on your payroll tax or your property relief tax. Property tax that we wouldn't receive if you wouldn't have made that investment. So we're doing that. We're making the land that you already have easier to search for. So those are all posted on websites, and we've included all the engineering aspects of it so that they know what it's going to take to develop that land. We only have one budgetary item that really addresses industrial development, and that is the IDEA grant. That is an industry-specific grant, essentially allowing us to, when there's something weird or something unexpected that happens, a pot of money to push it over the edge. That has been in the books since we had a problem with it, so at least 4 or 5 years now, where it's there in case just to push it over the edge. I don't believe we've used that in the 4 years that I've been aware. Commercial growth. Commercial growth is where most of the budget requests you're going to see come in. So let's talk about some of the problems. These may not be as much of a problem as it is very obvious. And once it becomes obvious, you're going to receive a lot of questions about it. We have some downtown storefronts that are closing. We have the New World Tea Shop that's closed, I believe. We have the Copper Bend Boutique, which is moving down to the south end back. And we have that My Personal Fitness, or that shop right next to the View, that's been vacant for some time. So let's understand why they are vacant. Every case is different. New World Tea, he opened a store in Worcester, and the rent, from my discussion with him, exceeded the market. Fitness space, they've had multiple viewings, my understanding, but it's my understanding that the rent has exceeded the surrounding market. So the person may be asking for more rent, or is hoping for more rent than perhaps the market will bear. Copper Bend, they were locked into a long-term lease down in the Match District, and couldn't justify 2 rents. She was trying to sublease one of them, so she went back to the Match District. So we're not losing her, we're just moving her down to the Match District. None of those, I would argue, are functions of something the city could have done or should have done to save or keep those businesses where they were. Just as an aside, we have 3 things that are opening. We have the Blue Tip Jewelry and Watch Company that's opening. We have Sonnets that I've been told is going to be opening. And we have Bird and Company, that open storefront that has wonderful things in the front window, is going to be open shortly, if not. I gave her a Dora sticker, so my expectation is she's coming soon. What can we control if we can't control that? We control infrastructure, sidewalks, parking lots, and if you look at that infrastructure, that is a long time coming, right? That was this parking lot right here, the west parking lot, which just looks about 1,000 times better than it did. It's my understanding, but not in my budget, in other people's budget, we're going to be looking at this parking lot down here to make it also look great, incorporate where that new bar was, that open space now, to turn that into something, and the pocket park comes in. That is all economic development process, but none of that is in the budget that we're going to be asking to pass, but that is something the city does control. We also control subtle pushes and incentives, and this is where some of it comes up. Subtle pushes, this is water main down here. They were the recipient of not only a facade improvement grant, for those of you who remember Kreitz, that is a significant improvement, and the wall that comes up here was part of that grant to beautify it, even if and when he ever left, that would stay beautiful for the south end. The restaurant expansion grant, that was the REAP, he used that to help put in part of his hood, or part of his expansion of his kitchen. We wanted a subtle push to get more restaurants downtown. We've got not only Cambria, Sonnets is applied for it, with the View, and Water Main all received it. And so we got the end result we were looking for, which is more restaurants downtown. We have to create events that artificially increase traffic. That also is for economic development. That is the Dora, that is the concert series, that is blue tip, that is First Fridays, that is all of those things. So getting to the budget requests, the first one is the industrial. That's the IDEA grant we talked about a little bit, $75,000. The terms of that is you can only get $25,000 at a time, and it is only for an infrastructure improvement, not for financing or for marketing or anything like that. That is just the in case of emergency break glass, so that we can make sure that if there was one of these big fish we could land, that would help it get over the finish line. The commercial ones we are addressing is a facade grant. The past two facade grants, and I would argue that they're very successful. Downtown has never looked better in terms of its facade. We had one for the south end, for the Match District. We've had one for the downtown. I would like to open it up. I would like to not ignore any part of the town, open it up for the entire city so that the north end could make application, west end, east end, any of those businesses who have a good idea that they want to put some sweat equity in, have some type of matching grant for it. That $75,000 request. The downtown concert series, the original plan, that is for commercial, representing it. Original plan was to have seed money, to not be something funded, rather something self-funded like the blue tip is. But the organization that did it had some great success, had some questionable ones. I'm not sure their viability for next year, considering the T person is one of the people that is leaving us. Certainly I would want to have available seed money if Main Street were to do it or some other organization were to come do it. They would need that same issue. I have talked to Main Street about whether or not they want to do it. They expressed an interest and have it part of their First Fridays. So I know for budgeting purposes for going and asking for money, it's certainly one of those things to do. But $25,000 is what the request is the same as last year. Main Street is also in that budget. $35,000 is consistent with what we've done last year. Main Street brings people downtown through their First Friday events and through their strategic planning. Some of the things they're doing with historic designations has also been very successful. The new request is the CIC. That is the Community Improvement Corporation. That is for $50,000. I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. When you look at your book, you see contractual services, $299,820, right? What does that mean? This is what it's made up of. The IDEA grant, facade grant, concert series, Main Street, the CIC. $50,000 more than last year is the CIC. Everything else is pretty much the same. If you go through that other parts, we're talking about cost allocation, memberships, editing software, marketing material, advertising, website, permitting software. Part of it would come through us. Legal ads and those things. That is identical to what it was for the past 3 to 4 years, my understanding. So the only thing really they're asking for anything different is the Community Improvement Corporation. We've been talking about this thing for years. It's time to use it if we're going to. What do we need it for? It fills in the holes that the government's not good at. Speed, efficiency. It allows you to do things that maybe the city would have difficulty doing or too slow to do it. We created a board, and I've already got some feelers on it. I would like them to be the ones that administer the grants so that they can tell what's a good one, what's a bad one, who should go with limited resources and where should it go. They can sell land either on their own or as an agent for the city. They can use the funds for advancing the goals that's impossible for the city to do, such as improvements on people's private property. Cities can't do that. CICs can. And it acts as a corporation with the same goals as the city. I need more than just me on that. I need council representation on that CIC board. I need administration representation on that CIC board, and I need public representation of the CIC board. The CIC is back in good standing with the state of Ohio. I've done that, and I'm just going through the bylaws on how to create that board. I'll do an entire seminar on the CIC, what it can do, what it will do, what I propose for it to do at a later time, but that's where the difference is, the $50,000. That's it for me on budget. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have a question about the CIC.
Yeah.
So is the notion that eventually that we would need to give more money to that? Like, where are they going to get money to purchase land?
initially, what it would be is they'd act as an agent for the city. So the city pays, the council authorizes the CIC to do it, and they can negotiate that contract.
Oh, okay.
It's one way of doing it.
Okay.
CICs in different communities do it differently, where they get land that we already have, that we're sitting on for God knows why reason,
Sell
and then
it.
they sell it. They got the money to turn around and buy
Buy something.
different parcels for it. So it depends on what that board wants to do, and I don't want to predispose
Right.
or presuppose what the board wants to do on that.
Yeah, and even properties that the city might take out through a sheriff or auditor sale can be transferred over to the CIC, who can then do things that would be difficult for the city to do, and they can maybe sell it to the, without a bid process and other things.
I think it's a good idea. My overall question is, are we spending enough money on economic development? Do we have, you said, I don't know what it was, if one of those numbers, if we get a big fish, I think it was 75,000. I don't think that's gonna reel in a big fish. Do you? I mean, I know this is what we've always spent, but, you keep doing the same thing over and over, you get the same results.
Yeah, and that's why when I talked about it, that's why I wanted to present the problems and show what we're doing,
Yeah.
because we're not alone on that. If you remember, one of the things that Glenn talks about is the coffee pod, who's going to fill it up. Once we start getting this development, we get these impact fee costs, now we can start putting in bigger infrastructure. So maybe that property that's, that little leg over there over by 57, maybe now we can get a sewer or something with that building, that fund up. So the question is, we are addressing every one of those concerns we're trying to. Can we reel in those big fish? It's got to be the right one. It's got to work with Wadsworth, because there's a lot of communities going
Sure.
just way overextending themselves, putting in tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure, and then the company bails.
Oh, then it's empty, yeah. Yeah.
So it's got to be smart. So we're better pressed by serving our own companies that are already here, your Ebners, your Supremas, and letting them expand and taking care of them. So that's also important.
Tom, can you share that PowerPoint presentation?
Share with everybody.
And then we can spend next month talking more about it if there's no,
Absolutely.
definitely some more questions, but with the meeting coming up next, does anyone else have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Tom, appreciate that.
Did you want to do any?
We could say that, I just give you the budgets, take a look at it, but as you'll
Interest
see,
time.
for 2025, we are down in revenue and expenses because it was prepared with the assumption that Medina County would be taking over the building department activities, which is obviously the highest source of revenues, but also the highest source of expenses.
Cost. Okay.
Okay,
All right, very good.
all right. Anything else from the committee? Ms. Williams? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.